At the time, I was 15 years old, pet-sitting a friend of mine's dogs, while they were out of town, and in Benton, Arizona is where this took place. This property had a lot of acres, and it took about 15 minutes to get to their little house right in the middle of probably 75 acres. At the time, it was around 10 p.m. My friend had 8 dogs, and they usually stayed outside for the most part because they were big watchdogs who seemed to have been able to defend themselves in the past. Before everything happened, I was inside their tiny home making food, and when I heard their biggest dog start squealing kind of quietly, very scared and in pain, but loud enough for me to hear, I knew the sounds were unusual, that this dog was making. I shot up and ran outside to see what was going on. I thought maybe the dog might have hurt itself or something, but this wasn't the case. I ended up seeing a 5 to 6 foot tall, pale, very skinny creature hunched over the dog, sucking on his head. It was very bony and long and had no fur. It also looked like it hadn't eaten in ages, and it had very long arms and long legs, and it crawled on all fours very fast. It looked like its back was hunched up in the middle. When it got scared and jumped up, this thing was fast enough for it to just get swallowed in the darkness, quicker than I could adjust my eyes to the darkness. Seeing something crawl like that was something I feared since being a little kid, and I pray I won't ever see that thing again. It didn't look humanoid per se, but it did look very unusual, like maybe the arms and legs of a human. It looked naked, but I couldn't make out any genitals. It was pale white, and its head was round, and for it to be able to suck on the dog's head, its mouth was strangely large. Other than this, I couldn't make out any other features of this thing, other than that it looked like that thing called the rake. Pictures of the rake look exactly like it. I was very stunned, almost too stunned to speak, but I managed to shake that feeling off. I start yelling at this thing, because the dog started yelping loud, and I'm telling the creature to get out of here, and just trying to scare it. I run over to her dogs as fast as I could, because I heard of these things before, perhaps a chupacabra, and I know that they would likely eat the dog if I didn't do something. But I stop about 10 feet in front of this thing, and see the creature jump up and run as fast as it can away. I couldn't help but keep looking over my shoulder the rest of the time I was there. I also didn't let the dogs out at night, and I didn't care to go out there either. When my friends came back, I told everyone what happened and what I saw. It felt like everyone was just as frightened as I was, and it made me even more unsettled. I ended up leaving that desert and did not look back. I still don't know what to make of it to this day, except I know that it was something demonic. It was September in central Idaho. Autumn had come to the mountains, and with it, bow hunters looking for mountain goats. My cousin, let's call him Vern, is an avid hunter. He's been all over North America hunting various game. Bears in Alaska, wild hogs in Texas, bighorn sheep in Wyoming. But his favorite hunting area was the Lemhi mountain range in central Idaho. Our extended family has been hunting in those mountains for generations. We know every river bottom and mountain peak, like many people know their own neighborhoods. Mountain goats are a fascinating animal to hunt. They live well above the tree line in rocky environments. They are sure-footed and can climb near vertical slopes. Hunting these animals requires one to venture into these dangerous areas. You have to be mindful as you pursue an animal like that. One wrong step on a rocky slope or one loose rock could mean you're not going home ever again. Vern was an expert mountain hunter. It's something he was born to do. Vern decided to hunt in the Hayden River area of the Lemhis. It's a familiar spot to most locals, and the area is home to plenty of mountain goats. The first mile of Vern's hike was uneventful as he climbed up the canyon. The air was crisp, and his breath formed in great plumes as he progressed. The sun was just peeking over the mountains when Vern came to a small deer trail. He decided it might be a nice shortcut from his usual route and took it. A few hundred feet up the trail, he saw something odd pop out from behind a tree. It was a man. He was dressed in a light denim coat and jeans and was carrying a small backpack. My cousin stopped for a few seconds to get his bearings, unsure of where this guy came from. The man waved at him with both arms. One of them was holding an older-style hunting bow. Acknowledging him, Vern waved back. Although the man looked to be physically fine, it was clear that he was emotionally distressed. He yelled out something my cousin couldn't quite hear, and waved his arm, indicating my cousin should follow him. Vern didn't get any bad vibes from this man, and could tell he was genuinely in some need of help. He began to make his way up the canyon following this mystery man, but he could never gain any ground on this guy. He was always just far enough away that he couldn't talk to him. Periodically, the man would stop, turn towards him to make sure Vern was still following. Every time he looked back, Vern could see the worry in his face. My cousin did his best to remain calm and keep a smile on his face, unsure of who or what he was being led to. It was peculiar, Vern thought as he hiked. He hadn't seen any other vehicles on his drive up to the trailhead. Perhaps he had come in from another ridge? What could he possibly be leading him to? He figured one of his hunting party had been hurt and needed help. Of course, he wouldn't have had to speculate if the man would just stop and talk to him for 5 minutes. Vern lost sight of the guy just past a turn in the trail. The trail opened up into an incredibly steep, rocky talus slope. He looked in every direction and could not locate the man when he heard a whistle. Looking up, he saw the guy about 500 feet up the rocky slope waving at him. There was no possible way that he could have gotten up that far in just the short time Vern lost sight of him, but he still didn't feel any fear or wariness about this weird situation. The man was waving more frantically now, practically begging Vern to follow him up the slope. With a sigh and a grunt, he started up the rocks. It was slow going. Every other step caused a mini rock slide and would cause him to continually lose his footing. Huffing and puffing on the cool, thin air, my cousin eventually made it to the small landing. It had taken him almost 45 minutes to get to the spot where he saw the man from below. There was no earthly way anyone could have done that scramble up the hill any faster. Totally exhausted and out of breath, Vern sat down on the stone landing. He looked around and couldn't see the man anywhere. As he scanned his surroundings, he saw something odd poking out of a boulder about 20 feet from him. Walking over to it, he found a weathered boot. 2 boots, actually. Inside those boots, and under the boulder as well, were bones. Vern looked around once again for the man, but he never saw him again. Instead of feeling eerie or unnerved, Vern felt a sense of relief wash over him. These emotions weren't his own. What he felt seemed to come from all around him. He marked the spot with his GPS and decided to make his way down and call the authorities. The Lemhi County Sheriff's Office responded, and he led them up the canyon to the body. It took 4 grown men to push the boulder out of the way, and when they did, they found the skeletonized remains of a man. On the body, they found hunting equipment and some personal effects. From a credit card in the wallet, they were able to identify the man. He was a bow hunter that had gone missing almost exactly 53 years beforehand. Vern never wanted to be identified to the public or the missing hunter's family. He didn't want recognition for something like that. To him, it was just one of those bizarre mountain stories. He was happy that the family got closure, even if it was half a century later. The only thing that bothered him was the man leading him up to the canyon, and with his strange and sudden disappearance. He had mentioned the waving man to the sheriff, but it was brushed off. When news reports came out announcing the discovery, several photos of the man were published. Vern was absolutely shocked when he saw them. In the photos was the man that he had seen, leading him up the mountains to the body. It finally made sense to him. The man's distrustful look, the constant checking if Vern was following him, the sense of relief he felt when the body was discovered. That man was desperate to get home, and through Vern, he was able to be reunited with his family. I work as a county park ranger, and we have one park that has been around since the early 1970s, with huge trails that go everywhere, from hilly to tree-filled to fields. I have one particular spot I like to go to get away from a chaotic day, find some quiet, eat my lunch, etc., because it's up on some hills and windy, so not a lot of people go there. Anyway, one day, around 12:07, when I was in my spot overlooking the stables, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A very beautiful, blonde, white woman, in what looked to be a 1970s-ish era sundress, and she was soaking wet. Keep in mind, it was a beautiful sunny day, and the only water in the park that would get her wet would be the marsh, but she wasn't dirty like she went into the marsh. She looked distressed and was cuddling herself, if that makes sense, but was also walking quick. First, I said, "Hey, how's it going?" No response. Didn't even acknowledge my existence. I then said, more concerned, "Are you okay? Is someone trying to hurt you?" Wouldn't be the first time that I've seen that scenario play out. Again, no response, and didn't even acknowledge my existence. I thought, okay, that was weird. I looked down from the trail she came from. Nobody. Turned around to the trail she went to. Nobody. The trail she went down is a long, straight hill path, so even if she sprinted down it, by the time I turned around, she could have maybe made it to the bottom if she was Usain Bolt. On my next shift, I came back to my favorite spot, and what do you know? Around 12:07, I hear footsteps coming up the trail, turn around, and there she is again. Same girl, same clothes, soaking wet, and same expressions. This time, she walked down the hill and around the corner, then again vanished. About a week after, I worked again, and I went back to my spot. Lo and behold, 12:07, there she is again. This time, I followed her down the trail, and the part that confirmed for me that something wasn't normal was when she just escaped my eyesight because of a stupid tree, and gone. I did a lot of research and couldn't find any stories of a girl from the 70s-ish era dying in the park or anything, but it's weird. Not my favorite spot anymore.